even though we've had a strong brand from the beginning, what you need to stand out on shelves is such a refinement of who is my customer, how do I talk to them, and also how do I talk about my product? Because you might think that this is a really cool way to talk about the product, but then why people buy it is a totally different thing, and you have to really nail that messaging.
Hi everyone, it's Alex York. I'm an associate editor at Forbes on the 30 Under 30 team, and I am here with two Under 30 alum today, Sabrina and Jade of 4 a.m. Skin. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to talk about all you guys are building with 4 a.m. You guys have had quite the exciting year, past couple of years. Before we get into all like the nitty gritty, I want to know just a little bit about you. Can you give me like a 30-second rundown about who you each are and what you're doing today?
100%. Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can take it.
Sounds good. I'll take it away. So, hi, I'm Sabrina Sadeghian. I'm one of the co-founders of 4 a.m. Skin. I'm also a medical student at Georgetown University. I've always been super into skin. I had horrible acne growing up, and that got me into loving skincare, dermatology, what have you. But it wasn't until, Jade and I kind of put our brains together and brought our child 4 a.m. into the world. But I'll let Jade give her intro first, and then
Yeah.
we can talk about
I came from a slightly different background. We met at Georgetown undergrad, but when I exited school, I went into a finance job, and that was the first time that I saw my skin deteriorate because I didn't know how to use skincare. I was working so many hours, I was saying yes to everything, and I remember going to Sabrina saying, "Hey, I don't know what just tell me exactly what I need to do and I'll do it." She came to me with what I'm sure was an amazing 15-step skincare routine.
all the
But there
things
was
and potions.
Yeah.
no way I was gonna do it, and we realized there was this real desire to have skincare that made you feel good when you put it on in the bathroom, but it was not telling you that you need to do a million steps, but that was still effective. And when we came about 4 a.m., it was really about celebrating that you can be out till 4 a.m., you have this really busy life, and making skincare that works within that lifestyle rather than asking you to change it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that right now too, there's like with consumer culture today, there are so many products out there and so much
Yeah.
being, pushed at us on social media or,
Mhm.
when you go to a store and like the shelves are just flooded with so many different types of products. So I totally understand that wanting to just like simplify everything. Did you guys, when you were kind of coming across this and realizing like I just need to simplify my skincare routine, did you think about becoming a founder or was that not till much, much later?
I mean, it was funny. So, Jade, I gave her this 10-step routine, and she's like, I'm not going to do this. Like, I have to go to Barry's in the morning. I have this bag, and then I run to the office. And I feel like that was
Back in the day, especially back in the day, this was I graduated in 2018, so maybe I'm aging myself, but 2019 pre-COVID, it was really you're in office. I was in trading, so I had to be in the office around 7 in the morning. So I was going to the 5. I was pushing it if I went to the 6 a.m. berries of that was late. And I had to run and leave early to get in line for the showers so that it wouldn't be a long. So it was a very different culture of okay, everything you are constantly on the go and needing something fast
optimizing
in
fast.
between.
And so I basically had a bunch of derm mentors and estheticians that I knew and that I worked with, and I was just saying, I want to give my friend this skincare routine. I want a vitamin C serum. I want a hyaluronic acid. I listed all the ingredients. And I was like, you think that I could just take a bunch of serums and dump them in a bowl and then dump them in a thing and then just throw it at her? They're like, I don't know about the stability of something like this, but we know some lab partners and some other researchers. Maybe we can throw you off to them. One of my friends was working at Lemire at the time in research and development, and I called her up and I was like, what's the stability thing? What's the chemistry behind this? And then basically one thing led to another, talked to a bunch of people and created a prototype of what's now our hero product, which is called the routine. And I threw it at her and I said, happy birthday, here's your skincare routine.
I love that. So you were in trading at the time. What were
Yeah.
you doing at the time?
I was actually finishing up undergrad and going into med school at the time.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you were on this track to be in the dermatology space,
Mhm.
but did you ever envision yourself becoming a founder?
It's funny. When I was younger, I said this before, but I had such bad acne, and my mom never let me wear foundation because she was like, "It's gonna make your skin worse. It's gonna make your acne worse. Just let it breathe." And so when I was in high school, I was like, I just wish that there was a makeup brand that cured your acne and I could finally wear foundation and it wouldn't make it worse. And I would always joke that, you know what, I'm gonna start that one day.
Yeah.
But it was never serious, right? It was just oh, I want something that fills this void. And then one thing led to another where it was more that we had got a product that really filled the void that we were then having, in our 20s.
Mhm.
And really just said, why don't we do this? Like, if it's not us that's going to do this, who will do it? We are the key demographic, ideal consumer, and we both have like good background and kind of, I mean, not really how to start a business. We Googled like how to start a business, but felt like we could be the people to do it. So yes and no. I always have joked around that I wanted to do it for sure. So maybe it was an inkling in the back of my head, but definitely not.
How do you guys divide up like what your responsibilities are today? Like you said, you maybe came at it with the medical experience. You came at it one, like just with the need and knowing that there was like a market at hand. What are you guys, how do you guys divide what you do today?
Yeah. So when we first had the idea was when I was still in finance. And then I kind of knew in the role that I was in that I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur in some capacity and knew that I wasn't quite learning that at my old job. So I ended up working at a kind of like ad tech startup, but really did growth marketing for a bunch of direct to consumer brands. The company ended up working for Glossier and Birchbox and all these other, and a lot of these VC-backed direct to consumer brands. And I got to see what it looked like to grow these things at lots of different scales. So I think it was that experience and also that job had a little bit more flexibility. I will say, and it was work from home, etc. So it was something that we were able to start off on the side. But Sabrina really does all of like the R&D and really has such a point of view when it comes to ingredients, etc. As well as has a really good idea of say how to make like a pretty brand.
I do a lot of world building. That's what I like calling it.
I'm like, how do I make this ad sell today?
How do we make money off
Yes.
this?
And here's the to-do list of all the things that need to get done. How do we like onboard our 3PL? How do we get some of the ads that are pretty don't necessarily sell product. And sometimes it's like a big give and take of brand versus growth a lot of the time.
Yeah, I always joke that like I create the brand for Jade to sell. And it's a perfect partnership. And it's funny because people too say, you know, you're two best friends and how did you really start this business together? And is it hard sometimes working with your best friend, or how do you guys divide that question? And for us, we have such different skill sets that we know we're both good at. Like Jade is an incredible growth marketer. I know not much about growth marketing, and I'm like, I respect all your knowledge on this. This is your terrain, your territory. I love looking at mood boards and brand and product development and finding that new ingredient that's going to be revolutionary for a consumer and really going deep into the research. And that's then my domain that she lets me kind of ride off on. And it's perfect too, because even our working styles are very different. I like looking at the big picture, and she's, like she said, very much like the to-do list.
Yeah.
What are we doing
today?
Yeah, like get your inbox.
How can we pay everyone today?
Yeah, email to inbox 0 today. And I'm very much like, what's the next 2 to 5 years to 10 years look like for the brand?
Totally. How did you guys realize that you guys had those like compatible skill sets, ways of working, all the things that you need to be a good partnership with each other?
I think we just got lucky.
Yeah.
Like it really, I do think that every day, and I'm so thankful to that every day that we are just really compatible.
Yeah, I think we take it for granted a lot of the times too, because now that I know more founders, I also know a lot more people who have founder breakups or just have issues with their co-founder. And I think the main thing that we've been able to do and enables a lot of that kind of working balance is like we're very honest with each other, and it's like I'm very much not a person who's afraid to hold or will hold a grudge. I'd much like the idea is always to just put things on the table, like, okay, this isn't working because of this. How do we fix it? Rather than have it like be in the back of your head, oh, this isn't working, but like I don't know how to say it, and I'm just gonna get annoyed about it and let it build.
Yeah, and I think too, when we've had a disagreement about like a direction with a product or like where we want to take the business or whatever, it's very much like, all right, this is my side. I'm going to tell you exactly why I think this way. And then Jade will be like, this is why I think this way. Let's have a constructive, conversation together, because at the end of the day, the goal is for us to succeed as a team, a unit, a brand, right? And so there's never this idea that like, I need to be right.
Totally.
And there's so many times that once Jade's been like, I really think it's this, I'm like, you know what? I didn't even see it that way. You're right. Like, let's do it this way, and vice versa, which I think communication is very important. It's like, I think it's more important than even in like a romantic relationship, friend relationship, to like have honest and upfront communication to make sure everything gets done.
So what were, you have this product, you're deciding we all want to build this brand around it. What were like the tangible steps to then creating a business behind it? Because like you guys said, that's a very different thing to, you know, come at it with like a brand idea versus a product idea versus wherever you're coming at these things with. How did you then put this into practice to build a business around it?
Yes.
I would say I think it takes longer than people would think. Like,
Yeah.
I was not full time on the business until like 2 years technically since our launch. Like, it was very much a side hustle thing, and I think it was even over that course of that time that I realized, oh, this is a business that makes money, and maybe I should focus on this.
Right.
But I think out of like actual tangible steps, it was really like finding a lab that we really liked and vibed with and knew they would be reliable with making sure that the product was something that we could stand behind and was like consistent. And then I feel like sometimes my mom was like, "Is it a business today?" Like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like,
Permittery is a
like,
business launching in Sephora.
I'm kidding.
We have a business.
No, I'm kidding. But I think you get into that because you don't really know when it turns from a
course.
product to a business,
Yeah.
is what I mean.
And it's funny too, because so the timing was also good in the way that, I mean, not good, obviously COVID wasn't great for the world, but we had the product prototype or whatever, and then COVID happened, and I was at my family's place down in Miami, and I told Jade, "Do you want to come quarantine with me down there?"
Yeah.
And it was this time where, I mean, no one knew what was going on, right? I just had a whiteboard in my family's living room and was just like throwing around ideas and being like, this would be fun. And it almost felt like a business school group project,
Yeah.
COVID
Yeah.
project thing at first. So it is funny to look back and thinking like, when did we go from like group project to business?
Yeah.
You know? And a lot of it was really Googling how do you do this? Like,
Yeah.
how do you start a skincare brand? How do I incorporate myself?
I mean, I think the first time I always think of when I thought it was a business, or not when I thought it was a business, when I'm like, oh, this is a real thing. And it was when you're like checking your Shopify and you see someone who purchased and you don't know them. That is like, and it still blows my mind to this day. Like, now
When did
I
that
don't,
first happen for you guys?
I mean, the first day,
yeah, it was like the first day of the brand actually.
on launch day, we had a TikTok go viral actually.
Okay.
That I'm still sad to this day got taken down.
Yeah.
But it's funny, kind of going a little bit before that, even when we were prepping for our launch. I think we did our launch in kind of the wrong way.
Yeah, I would totally do it so differently now.
It's so funny to think about, but we had this hyper secretive, hyper, cool girl launch that we were like super mysterious about. But we had contacted a bunch of different alcohol brands to say, hey, we have this skincare brand. It's all about having fun, going out, whatever, and got connected to someone actually at Patron and ended up doing a launch box with them where it was like a Patron little, what are those called?
Like the tequila, yeah.
And a like ground coffee set to be like coffee and then alcohol,
Coffee,
rise and rest. And they were like, this is a great idea. We love this.
I think they gave us 200 or 300. Yeah, 250 it was.
And we'd engraved like 4 a.m. in the side of the bottles and everything. It was awesome. And then we realized, I'm looking at these 250 boxes and I have no one to send this to.
Yeah.
I don't know a single person who's going to care about
I thought I knew a bunch of influencers. Like, I was like, oh, I feel like I know a couple girls who have 10,000 followers.
I was like,
I'll just send it to this.
No.
And then I remember we wrote out the list and I was like, there's like 40 people on here.
So I posted a TikTok and it was like, hey, is this your vibe? It was like a bunch of Pinterest photos. And I said, if you're an influencer in New York, because we also had to hand deliver them to everyone, so we didn't have an alcohol license to ship. So I was like walking around the West Village with like bags of these PR boxes. And I said, hey, we're this is a brand. This is 4 a.m.
vibe go out.
Had some trending sound to it. And within 3 hours, it was already at like 9 million views or something like that. And then it ended up getting taken down in hour 6 because we had like a Tom Ford photo in there that it was a girl with a perfume bottle in her like nether parts. And so they were like, it's like nudity.
Yeah, I got tagged for adult content. And I remember I was at my old job at the time and I like had some project there I had to do that night. And I like kept delaying the meeting with my manager, being like, hey, like, it's almost done. Like, still working on it though. Like, please, like, give me. I need refreshing. And I was like refreshing the TikTok and like DMing people back, being like, "Yeah, we'd love to send this to you."
It was such a rush. Like, the old. I don't want to call it old TikTok, but like, it was just so crazy how quickly like it went viral and how much engagement there was and people.
Yeah, like DMing us on Instagram. Because I remember the Instagram had I think 200 followers, if that had 200 followers on it. And the message notifications was like 99 plus. And I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy.
Yeah. So
So through these early like growth, you had some like, viral moments at the very beginning, but you still were part-time doing this, correct? So when did you then decide, okay, this is something that I want to devote all of my time
yeah,
to?
I was literally still in medical school. Like
Yeah.
when we launched, it was during your like first and second year of medical school, you have like a month off. And that's literally the only month off you get in school. And I was like, okay, we have to plan the launch for like this time because this is the only time I'm going to be able to be in New York and like we'll
Yeah.
be able to do it. And then for me, it was this point between my second and third year where I was like, this brand is gonna either go somewhere or it's not. And I'm going to hate myself if I don't commit and actually try and see this through.
Right.
And medical training and medical school will always be there. But the life cycle is so fragile for brands that I was like, I really want to take this like leap of faith and try and go at it. And I emailed my deans at school and I was like, hey, like, surprise.
Yeah.
I've been working on this thing. And also for me, like my first full year of medical school was during COVID time. So like we didn't even go in. So I was able to work on it like during that time, but we were starting to go back in person and I was gonna be working at the hospital. And so like I really just I need to commit to this because I'll have one foot out the door in both spaces and it just won't really happen. And when I had my meeting with my deans, they were like, oh, we know, don't worry. We've seen it. We've seen the Vogue articles. We've seen the TikToks. Like, we're so excited for you. Go do it. Whenever you want to come back, we'll be here.
Yeah.
So I think having that too was a nice little, I don't know, omen, I guess, for me to know that this is the right decision.
How about you, Jade? What?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually somewhat similarly of I wish it was so I wish I had a better answer. It was like my old job went back into office and I felt really bad. Like I was a manager, I was like managing a team at this point and I was a bad manager. Like I was not very present and and I sort of realized, okay, I can either keep kind of disappointing people on both ends of the stick or I can kind of commit to this full time. I'm young, like I can, if it doesn't work out, I can go find another job.
Yeah.
Haven't stress tested that, but the brand isn't going to be there forever. And so we really got to work on it for that year, like truly. And I think built it into something more sustainable that we knew could kind of like withstand, and it was just giving, like we launched another product, and
It kept going viral.
yeah, and so
Making real money.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Was it like a financial figure that
it was not.
cost you guys?
No, I wish
Okay.
it was.
I wish it was.
Fully not. It was like I had been saving up, and basically I had 6 months worth of I could like if nothing happens, I can survive. So yeah, it was not a smart decision at the time at all.
Would you encourage other people to follow that same path? Or like, other founders who are up and coming right now, what is like kind of a beacon that you suggest people look at of if I should take this opportunity or if I should stay in my job right now?
I think, well, we kind of give it the same comp as like going to business school.
That's what, yeah, I think about that a lot.
Where a lot of founders will be like, oh, I feel like I like need to go to business school or something like that. And I think for us, we've learned so much over
Yeah, we never go to business school now.
2 years, built a network, which is great of like, people in the space that if you kind of compare it to that of like, okay, you're going to spend money into like school again. And if like you're willing to like take that time off and do that, I actually do think nowadays
Yeah, it's
having and starting a business, even if it fails,
yeah.
it is, I think, in a lot of spaces, like as comparable. I mean, I don't want to say it's the same as having a degree, but like it is, I think you get the same or more learnings.
Yeah,
Than
doing it.
Yeah, and I think I think, and it's easier to, it's always easy to say, oh, like, well, maybe I could have done this and had a salary for like a little bit longer or whatnot. But I don't think you will ever have like a perfect time. I think what I've always done whenever I switched like any job, when I left finance, like that for me was a really hard decision to make because throughout my entire life, I had gone on this like sort of like prestigious path. And I thought a lot of people would judge me for leaving that. A lot of people were like, oh, this is like an amazing job. You work at JP Morgan, you're killing it in New York. But I think truly, I think it was drawing up a lot of pros and cons list. And when the con was, I really believe that if this like you have to be okay. I think you have to sometimes be okay with failure and be like, but actually look at what will happen if it fails. And is it as bad
Devastating.
and devastating as you think it would be? Like, I think if our business failed tomorrow, I would still be glad that we did it.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
10 out of 10.
there's no doubt about that, because I'm like so certain that anything else we would work on would be that much better. And then also, I think the like network that you end up meeting people and like forcing yourself and kind of getting into that mindset of like, okay, if no one does this thing, like the weird thing about founding a business is that if nobody does the thing that you're like pushing off, like no like other person in the office is going to pick up the slack and do it for you, or no one's going to tell you, hey, you didn't do that thing, like you need to get that done by Friday. And that sort of energy and ability to build something is like such a unique thing that you gain as a founder.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I had a very similar experience when I left medical school. Everyone was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, this is such a like great stable path. Like, you've been working towards this since I got into medical school when I was like 18. So I was like very young when I decided to go, and everyone was just like, "You're gonna waste time. You're gonna do whatever," and just kind of trying to not listen to that noise. And I think very important too for any other founder, and just taking a bet on yourself and saying, you know what, like Jade said, like if it fails, like fail boldly, and you will learn so much. I mean, even now being back in school, like there's so many ways that I think about things just differently through having the lens of being an entrepreneur, and having to juggle so many different things at once. And so in whatever you do, even if it's not the, company that IPOs or sells for billions of dollars, you create such a great skill set that I think is invaluable.
What do you think has been the key to your success?
Being super scrappy.
Yeah, I think and the faith in that it will work out. Because a lot of times you're like, oh,
Faith.
because I think even the things that you thought, oh, we have to get that like this year, we have to do this year, and then maybe it doesn't happen, it happens the next year. You are like, oh my God, wait, I'm so happy that happens now and not like last year, because we wouldn't have been able to do it.
Well, on that note too, I just want to jump in and say, like with your Sephora Accelerator program, correct? You guys had applied to that multiple times before getting in this year, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
So what was that experience like, kind of going through and maybe realizing like this was actually the better time?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking about, was that. And I think if you look, even though we've had a strong brand from the beginning, what you need to stand out on shelves is such a refinement of who is my customer, how do I talk to them, and also how do I talk about my product? Because you might think that this is a really cool way to talk about the product, but then why people buy it is a totally different thing, and you have to really nail that messaging. And I don't know, like, and I think especially if you're at a Sephora and there's all these things on the shelves and you don't know, like, when someone buys it from our website, they probably looked at our TikTok, they looked at our Instagram, they scrolled around the website for a couple minutes.
The worlds that
they've seen everything. Whereas on a shelf, you have to be so much more direct. This could be someone who's just walked into Sephora, was trying to buy something else, and then, oh, like this, let me look at this. And so having that strength of the brand, like I think we're coming into the program, it's obviously still early on in the program, but knowing that like we will succeed in this, and it is such an expensive space is honestly one of the reasons why they started Accelerate, at least from what I've been told. Because I think Sephora is a great place where they do launch some earlier, or they do launch some like smaller indie brands. It's not that they just take whatever is the biggest brands. There's some huge brands that do millions of dollars of sales, but that aren't going to be launching at Sephora. It's because they have a very specific idea of who their kind of target customer is. And I think we've always thought about Sephora as where we wanted to be. But I also think had we been there like 2 years ago, it would have been like super overwhelming, and we wouldn't have like the capital to actually succeed there, or we wouldn't have had, honestly, the product lineup to succeed there.
Yeah. And is that, when people are coming into these shelves and they're seeing so many products, like I was talking about earlier, what makes you guys stand out today? Is it the packaging? Is it the colors? Is it the branding? What do you think draws people's eyes to 4am?
I think it's more the story of who we're targeting. I think that there is a lot of brands that are now starting to get into the minimalist
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
But I think
keep seeing this year, like 2025 is the year of skinimalism.
Yeah.
Like, I have been saying this for
since
years.
2021, but
Yeah.
and 2019 when we started this thing. But it's funny because for us, even though like there are all these brands, they are still touting the like clean girl, like minimalism, drink green juice kind of vibe. And so I think for us, we've been lucky that, you know, a big brand hasn't just like stolen our thunder,
Yeah.
but also like we have such a strong narrative of just have fun, go out. Like we have dark packaging, and all of our photo shoots with the products have been from our events that we throw.
Yeah.
It's been like party photos, and I think having that authenticity as a brand is something that a lot of people gravitate towards and see. And it's this idea that we're going to create a brand that really fits within your life, rather than making skincare the most interesting thing about you. And so having that sort of messaging really be at the core and the base of the brand, I think is where we created this cult following that will hopefully follow us into all of these stores.
And I think even that like dark packaging, like so, you
Yeah.
know, the blacks and the grays and the whites, like so much of skincare is like either pastel-y or neons or whatever, very bright and vibrant. So I do think that there is a differentiation in that way as well.
Yeah. And I think beauty is such a crowded space. And I honestly, everyone says that. And then once I was in, I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot more brands than I even thought existed. But I do think we have been so clear from the beginning that and that a brand for everyone is a brand for no one. And so you have to be okay with sometimes being like, this is not going to be pleasing towards everyone. Like I remember we had a conversation with a potential investor who she on our Instagram we had people a photo of someone smoking or cigarettes or something, and she's like, you definitely cannot have that. I was like, I just don't think you get the brand. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's funny because she was like a big exec that we were so excited to meet with, and we were like, this is a dream investor. And then she said that she's like, yeah, you're gonna have to change this and this and this and blah blah blah, and make it way more mass and like that everyone will feel comfortable. And I said, well,
That's not gonna.
yeah,
We took the feedback, but like we'll listen. I'll listen to anyone. But I think when we thought about, but as a result of having such a strong brand, anytime I have never felt that some new brand launches and it looks exactly like that. Right. That has never ever ever happened. And I see so many brands, my friends who have brands or whatever, they're like, oh my gosh, like this brand just came out. It has like a celebrity founder and it looks exactly like ours. And I'm like, I just don't see that happening for us. I mean, maybe it will, but but I think because we're so unapologetic with who we are.
Definitely. What do you guys see as the future of the skincare and beauty space? Are there any trends that you guys are watching out for, things that you expect to happen within the next like 6 months to a year in the future?
I think we'll see. I mean, I think the continuation, I think it may actually be a pretty tough year for skincare because I think obviously skinimalism and like minimalism when it comes to skincare results in fewer products being bought. Right. And as a result, that just reduces in revenue, even though we've kind of taken that as how we want to go. But I also think people are looking for a lot of innovation when it comes to, I think we're going to see a lot of innovation when it comes to form factor. So let's say like the mask that you put on and then you peel off in one piece, or like the lip liner stains that you peeled off, or new dry shampoos that come like in the powder poof rather than as an aerosol. I think there's so many ways that you can make a product interesting and actually work better. Like I love those lip liner stains that like really stay all day. And that is both like innovation in terms of like product and like the form factor. So I think people are going to continue to buy beauty, but it's really about actually being differentiated. You can't just put the same thing in a new bottle, but really having it feel different to the consumer.
Yeah, and something that I think I'm excited about coming from like the medical side of things is I feel like consumers are more knowledgeable than ever on skincare, and they want to make sure that their product really works. And I think that's definitely in terms of like a form factor, making someone's life easier, integrating in their routine somehow. But I also think in terms of like actual ingredients and knowing like, hey, this has been researched, like, you know, it's peer reviewed, there's literature on it, and having people from the dermatology space injecting themselves more in skincare. Because it's funny, even like back in, it's not that long ago, but before COVID, like the spaces felt very separate, where it was like there was dermatology and then there was like skincare.
Right.
And now having like more people from that avenue coming back into skincare and wanting to create, great products. I even saw yesterday that Estee Lauder invested in an MIT like bio product lab for skincare, which is like very, very cool to me. And so having almost the elevation of peer-reviewed literature within skincare and bringing that space more into the like academic side would be really interesting. And I
Definitely.
definitely see that happening over the next couple of years.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why she went back to school to like finish it up, because so that we could have like an MD who was truly like behind the brand. That is really important to us, because as much as it's like a fun brand, we also want it to be clear that it's like science backed, and we want to do the science for you. You don't have to do it in your bathroom.
Yeah,
Exactly,
definitely.
yeah.
I want to go back to what you're saying about the investor really quick. And as you guys, are seeking out investments and just finding partners to work with, when you are an emerging brand, like you want that support, the money helps, the, network helps, all these sorts of things. But when someone says something to you that like doesn't quite vibe with what you guys are trying to build, how do you then say no to that? Like how do you then move forward? Is it easy to not then take the money and the support, or how do you move forward from a conversation like that?
I think we are always very clear that we want to build with people who have the same vision as us, because I mean, it's been a tough time, I think, for M&A and investment in general in consumer recently, and consumer goods recently. But I think that from the very beginning, we were very clear on whoever we're going to bring into this brand, it is a family, and we're going to have to work together for a very long time. And so I would rather have it be, and I mean, obviously, like if I could close my eyes and snap my fingers and turn around a little bit, I'd have like, my favorite founder be an investor of ours. But, and actually, well, we have some of our favorite founders who are investors of ours. But I think more so than just the capital is an alignment on where you want to see this brand in 5 years, because we've also heard horror stories of friends getting kicked out of their companies for certain reasons, or getting kicked out of the positions out there in, be it like CEO, CFO, whatever, and have those tensions be, what breaks the business. So I think it's just something from day one that we've always been just very careful about
Yep.
and like aware of, and bringing the right people that I feel like understand the business more. And we've also built the brand in a way that we're trying to make it something that's a profitable business that makes money
From the beginning,
from the
rather than
beginning. Exactly.
yeah. I mean, because I think your most powerful investor is your consumer who's giving you revenue. And that is something I remember when we like first launched. We were like, let's like raise $1 million, and then that we didn't do, and ended up having to get that money from actual paying customers, and it is a brutal grind. But I've seen, but it pays dividends later on, because what would I rather $1 million in revenue from paying customers or $1 million from an investor? I can bet you any day of the week I would rather that in revenue.
Right.
Even if it's not all profits, it's like literally because that teaches you so much on how your business, and you get truly in the weeds of what's working and what's brutally not working, and having to be so tight with it. Like,
Yeah, and I think too, it goes back to your point on, having a little bit of faith in the business and yourself, and knowing that eventually it will start to work, or that there will be another partner that comes around that understands you and the business.
yeah.
I think for us, you even said like some things that don't feel like failures, like we just move past them and we keep going. Friends of ours who've had brands that have raised a lot of money that have maybe a similar, let's say, failure, their investors will then not give them capital again and shut down the business, versus like we've been able to kind of float through,
Yeah.
let's say, a down month, because we know that we'll have an up month the next month.
Yeah.
And it's fine, because we don't have people who are like kind of breathing down your neck saying, what's going on? What's happening? Why are you not growing every single month over month over month over month? And I think it's been able for us at least to like take a step back sometimes and say, okay, like let's focus on this part of the brand now. Let's focus on this part of the brand now. And it's more of a longer term, I don't know, slower growth mindset, but at the same time, it's a very sustainable and replicable process that will, I think, give us longevity for the brand, rather than like a big flashy, have a bunch of billboards and wheat pastings in New York because we're able to throw money at it. But then does that actually provide value and, like you said, get paying customers.
Totally. My last question for you guys is being part of the under 30 community. Obviously, youth has a huge part of your brand. It's a huge part of consumer culture today. Do you see youth as a benefit or a challenge to building a business today?
I've been constantly impressed by the young people I meet through Forbes, obviously. But I think it gives you a little bit of naivete. If I had, for example, me thinking, oh, like beauty, everyone said beauty is very saturated. And then realizing like how like there's a new brand that pops up like every single day. There's so many new things. So I do think having that mindset of not realizing what you're getting into is
Yeah.
really great. And I also think the flexibility. Like if I had would I have been able to quit my full-time job with 6 months of savings left? If I had a kid and a family to take care of, no.
Right.
So there's that flexibility, and I think that in that you can take into that calculation, right? Of like, okay, if this fails, like we think of failure in such a like, oh my God, devastating. But what actually happens? Like, what actually happens if you fail? Okay, you fail, you learned a lot, and like you can start a new thing, you can get a new job, etc. Like it's actually not this end of the world thing. And so, and I think you can, if you can know that as a young person, it is so valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think exactly what you're saying. When you're young, you feel like you can fail a little bit more boldly and try something and go out there, and you're not as like comfortable in what you've been doing
Right.
forever, and you're scrappy, agile, you can change things. And then yeah, at the beginning of the brand when we started it, I remember looking at Jade and be like, we are the key people to do this. Like if it's not us, who's gonna do this? Like we are the consumer. We have the knowledge, we're gonna do it. And I think, like Jade said, it was a little bit naive at the time to think that way. But I do really think that we were building for a problem that so just affected us. And when we had talked with some, other bigger like conglomerates and things like that, when they were trying, and even saw on, different articles or Instagram, saw bigger conglomerates trying to build for Gen Z, at the time I was like, they just don't get Gen Z. That's how we're going to succeed because we are Gen Z and we get it. Um, and I think there is something valuable to that of like really having this experience that you are then solving for and feeling the pain points every day of what your company or product or whatever is trying to solve. So I think it's definitely been a great, you know, asset for us. And the best part is we're like friends with our customers.
Yeah.
It's the most fun. We'll go out with them and party with them and have them come to our stuff in New York and beyond, hopefully outside of New York too, this upcoming year. But it's been really great to build this community that I don't think we would be able to do if we were a little bit older building for a younger generation, which has been nice.
I love that. Well, thank you guys both so much for coming. This is awesome to chat about all you guys are building.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.